Uh, okay. And then one more thing before I introduce our speaker, I do just want to remind you of a couple things. One, if you could please remember to keep your microphone muted unless you're asking a question, that would be fantastic. Um, Also, Noel is going to kind of have a couple spots in his presentation where he's going to ask you some questions, just to kind of engage and get you to start thinking through how you might answer that question as well. So just go ahead and put your answers in the chat. And if you have questions along the way, feel free to throw those in the chat as well, and he'll answer them as he's able to. If you'd rather wait until the very end, though, we'll open up a time at the end for some Q&A as well. Um, Noel has also encouraged everyone to go ahead and grab a notebook and a pen, just so you can start jotting down some notes. So if you haven't done so already, now would be the perfect time to do that. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Noel. So Noel is going to be our speaker for tonight. He has a full-time classical homeopathy practice serving the good folks of Austin, Texas, and beyond. He's been at it for over 15 years and counting, and he relies on critical knowledge gained from his executive MBA degree that he obtained from Baylor University to help him with the nuts and bolts of first building a thriving practice and now sustaining one. He's past vice president for the CHC. He served on the board of directors for the Minnesota Homeopathic Association, and he's a former faculty member for the Prometheus Homeopathic Institute. His wife is also a classically trained homeopath, and together they have three striking young boys. I'm going to link to his website in the chat, and that's where you can learn more about him and his practice. So without further ado, Noel, I'll let you take it away.
Right. Thank you so much, Olivia. And I think you're running the slides, so if you don't mind sharing those, that would be awesome. But good evening, everybody, and I guess good morning to some others. It looks like we've got some folks from all over the world here tonight. So what a pleasure! It's a really great pleasure to be with you all. And as Olivia mentioned in the intro there, I've done a lot of work for the CHC in the past. I was on the board for 4 years, 3 of which I was the vice president on lots of different committees, and it truly is a labor of love. So I know she mentioned helping out with the CHC, so I'm just going to echo that call. We can always use good people dedicated to the profession helping out with the CHC's missions. So it's also a great honor to be here tonight. And this morning for some. I I was surprised to get this request, but I'm very very pleased to be able to chat with y'all tonight about some of the things I've learned along the way. I think if you have a successful practice, if I have a successful practice, the more and more people that do, the greater impact we can make worldwide. So I'm very thrilled and happy to be here tonight. And as she said, just please go ahead and you can chat questions as we go. I may not take them up until the end, but there will be other opportunities that I'll actually do want you to interact via chat. So, all right, if you, Olivia, could go to the next slide. So, what does it take? Well, what I wanted to really jump right in is actually highlighting a research study that was done back in 2007. And this was completed by Dr. Todd Rowe and Dr. Iris Bell, who are kind of legends in our field. And they have done amazing work clinically. Dr. Rowe started a school. Dr. Bell has done amazing work trying to help us understand how homeopathic medicine works. And anyway, but they surveyed homeopathic practitioners back in 2007. So I'm actually going to just a couple slides here highlight a lot of the work that they did because I feel like it's very pertinent to what we're doing and what we're talking about here tonight. What they found is they were able they surveyed thousands of people who would be considered a homeopathic practitioner on some level, and they were able to kind of determine and break out 5 different levels of a practitioner. And they determined level 1 is sort of the enthusiast. They're the appreciating homeopathy. They support it. They, on the behind the scenes, rah rah, homeopathy, but they're not practicing. And we all love these folks. They're very often people that we work with and help. They don't do the practice themselves, but they are absolutely loving seeing you as a practitioner. Um, Less than 4% of the US population is determined to be like a level one. Level two is sort of stepping up into a bit of a casual practitioner, sort of a first aid prescribing. Maybe you're helping out family members or your animals at home. You know a little bit about homeopathy, but again, primarily on a first aid type of basis. So you're an enthusiast, but you actually dabble in it yourself. But this happens to be a very small portion of the U.S. population, about less than 1/10 of 1%. Now, moving further, the third level, what they determined is these are folks who are using homeopathy pretty regularly, um, uh, beyond even just sort of first aid levels, and now they're moving into acute care, trying to treat at home. Maybe it's a mom trying to help out their sick kid, or sort of dabbling with friends who might have a headache or something like that. Local friend in the neighborhood. So that's about what we would call they're using it regularly, but mostly on just sort of acute care levels. And then they found also level four. Now, this is folks who are using a little bit more seriously. They're licensed healthcare providers in other professions. Maybe they're medical doctors, maybe they're Chinese medicine practitioners, chiropractors, nurse providers, and they're using remedies in their individual practice, using constitutional type remedies. So they've learned a lot. They've studied. They've done some coursework, but it's just a part of their overall individual practice. So homeopathy is just one aspect of what they do. And then level five, and I think this is more to sort of the heart of what we're doing in the CHC and as professional homeopaths. These are folks like ourselves who identify as a homeopath. Perhaps we've sought out, board certification through the CHC to become um, a professional homeopath. And this is primarily what you're doing. And maybe there's other things that you add into your practice, perhaps nutrition or perhaps essential oils, for example. But the main thing that you're trying to do is homeopathy. So I just find that to be sort of a good sort of foundation and also information just to simply share with you that there's all these different levels at which people are practicing homeopathy. Let's go to the next slide, please. So this is still from their research, and I grabbed this from H-Pathy website where they interviewed Dr. Rowe, and so I've linked the website there as well where you can find this information. But H-Pathy is a fantastic website too. But what they have here is you can see the total number for each of those specific professions, and then the further column level 3, level 4, and then level 5. And what you'll see, and what I think is just important to sort of point out, is the vast majority of people doing homeopathy at level 3, 4, or 5 are unlicensed practitioners. So that would include folks like us who, or perhaps you have a different degree that makes you not necessarily unlicensed, but most of us who are CHC certified or trying to get certified are unlicensed. And so you can see there's 32,500 of unlicensed homeopathy practitioners, 6,350 at the level 4 level, and then about 2,200 at the level 5 level. So, and this again is from 2006, 2007. So some of this information, as you can tell, is perhaps somewhat outdated, but I think it's the only information that I have been able to come across that has laid this out so well, though. Um, so I just wanted to make note that this is kind of what the overall kind of field looks like. And as you can also see from this graph, um, there's a lot of total MDs, NDs, which are naturopathic doctors, DCs, which are chiropractors, and DVMs, which are doctors of veterinary medicine. There's a lot of them in the US, but their numbers drastically decline as you get to level 5, whereas the unlicensed practitioners are still, it's as far as like if I had a pie graph to show you, this would be a large, large, large section. Um, so just interesting information. And next slide, please. And this is really what they found. I find this super interesting, very relevant, I think, to what it takes to have a thriving practice, but also to give you, who is attending here tonight, some ideas as to like what really is going on out there. Because I, like you, was once, fresh out of school. I was, you know, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, totally green, ready to go, but I didn't really know how many other people were out there doing this or what the field looked like. So. But again, as far as Dr. Rowe and Dr. Bell's research, these are all averages now, and I'm just going to look at the far left column. The average year of a practitioner is about 11 and a half years that they've been in practice. The average age is 49, and about three-fourths, even more than three-quarters of the practitioners surveyed were female. So this is, I always knew that to be the case, but I like to see the hard numbers supporting that. That there are far more women practitioners than there are males. And below that, the percentage of the practice that is homeopathic, meaning level 5, level 4, pretty much 73% of the respondents said that that's primarily what they're doing, and that percentage of income that is homeopathic in their practice was about half. So just kind of interesting that some folks are practicing homeopathy, also adding other stuff, like I said, other kinds of natural health type of modalities. Um, let's see. Looks like there might be a question about not being able to see the screen, Olivia. Um, I don't know if that's something I can do or not, but I'm just going to keep going. Um, in the middle column, new patient visits per month. So on average of all the respondents, um, there was about 10 new patient visits per month. And an average practitioner, again, practicing at any level, was having about 36 follow-ups a month. Um, this is the part that I found really interesting. A new visit charge back in 2006 dollars was $187. That was on average what practitioners were charging for an initial consultation. And I did some math and figured out using some inflation calculators that 2004 dollars, that would be about $284. So on average, that was the initial consultation rate, $284 approximately in today's dollars. A follow-up visit was about $71 back then, which amounts to essentially $108. So that's actually a follow-up visit charge by today's standards. And so what that effectively amounted to, or average monthly income, was $4,800 for a homeopath in 2006, which again in today's money would be $7,280 per month. Now, what does that add up to if you are doing this throughout the year? About, in 2024 dollars, $87,360. That's the yearly income of the respondents who were surveyed back in '06, and we translating those dollars to our current day. So I find that fascinating, that it's kind of surprising, in fact, that on average what homeopaths are basically earning. And again, I'd love to see current numbers to compare against this. Um, and then the third and final column on the right of the screen, the length of the new visit was 106 minutes. So um, that would be uh, somewhere between an hour and a half and 2 hour initial consultation visit. And then the length of the follow-up visit on average was 42 minutes. So pretty much three-fourths of an hour. Folks were scheduling their first follow-up visit about 30 days after the initial visit. And then the length of time in practice before financially breaking even was about 19 months. So about a year and a half, a little more than a year and a half. Again, this is on average of all the respondents. And again, I guess I just kind of thought it would be really interesting to highlight this because once again, it can kind of feel like you're in the dark. You're not really entirely sure what you're doing or what to charge. I think that was a really big thing I personally was hung up on when I was first starting is what is a good market rate for charging for my initial visit, charging for follow-up visits. Um, and so I think I really wanted to, provide this for you today to also help you determine some of those things for yourself because we're not all going to charge the same thing. There's lots of differences, and we could actually get into that a little bit more here today. So, next slide, please. All right, and this was also based on their research. They also highlighted referral sources. So, big thing of what we're always focused on in homeopathy or having a practice is you know uh, how to obtain clients. And so most of the referrals were gained through current patients. Oh, just basically half of all new patients that come to you will come from current patients. So I think that's really important, and we can really hang our hat on that stat alone. That if we're talking about how to market effectively, um, you really got to use the channel that's already established, and that's simply folks who are currently working with you, um, and a lot of times they are the ones that initiate other folks coming. But that's something that we can leverage as we do some marketing. Um, as far as family, other referral sources, family members, friends, 13%. So just people who don't know anything about homeopathy, but they happen to be other family members or friends that you want to start to help. And again, this is 2006 numbers, but the internet was 7%. I would venture to guess that that might be more now since you know the internet's changed dramatically over the course of the last nearly 20 years. Um, Healthcare means perhaps you have other folks in the healthcare industry who want to refer clients to you. They're not homeopaths themselves, but you know them, they know you. Other practitioners, 5%. Doing public talks out into the out, just trying to get your name out there. About 4% of referrals come from there. Being on a directory is 4% as well. And then publications, 3%. So writing articles, getting published in your local community newspaper or wider audiences on the internet, perhaps. And I'm not sure what other would entail, but that was about 6%. So I just wanted to also highlight that these are primarily where, at least in 2006, 2007, these were where the referral sources were coming from. All right, next slide, please. All right, so with that kind of background information and sort of where you can, having somewhat of a foundation as to what the industry looks like out there, um, what I find important and what I wanted to share with you is, and encourage you to start thinking about is, what is your why? Why are you doing this? Why are you in the consultation room at all? Um, what is motivating you to do it? And in fact, this is the part where I was going to actually ask if you wouldn't mind sending some chats. If you're clear on this, please let us know. What is your why? Why homeopathy? And as you think about it and ponder it yourself, because it's a big question, and I don't expect you to, if you don't know, and to come up with it here in 30 seconds. But um, back when I was in homeopathy school, I started my program in 2005, I think. Yes. And um, back then, I really didn't know about homeopathy. I knew really deep down inside that I'd be a natural health practitioner, but I thought it'd be in chiropractic, or I thought it was going to be in Chinese medicine. And I even looked at naturopathic medicine schools. But it was just that sort of calling from within, somewhere deep inside of me that was, kind of knocking on the door saying, this is your calling. This is what you want to do. And but I didn't know anything about it. I actually, to be really frank with you, thought homeopathy is, these little pills that, how can that possibly be? And I think so many other people probably feel that same way. But I went and visited a school. I talked with the dean of the school, and I was looking for the deepest method of healing possible. That was my pursuit. That was my why. And sure enough, um, the dean of the school was who became my mentor and said, "This is it. This is what it helps physically, it helps mentally, it helps emotionally, all at the same time." So that was my why, finding the deepest method of healing possible. So I know some chats have come through, and part of what I wanted you to do is just simply think about that yourself. What is the one thing that's going to keep drawing you back? When you're feeling low, when you're feeling like nothing's working, when you feel like it's not happening, we need to come back to our why. So I'm gonna, I guess, just keep advancing the slides, and please keep those kinds of ideas in your mind though as we go. Um, Sorry. In fact, let me actually pull up a couple of them. Uh, here's sorry, I got to scroll to the serving fellow humans came up. Um, it is the most elegant system of medicine. What a beautiful word, elegant. It greatly improved the health and lives of my kids and then with me, says Kathleen. Hi, Kathleen. Colleen says, providing people freedom of choice. That's something natural. Went the natural route in 2014 and believe strongly in the body can heal itself with the right tools. Holistic approach, a beautiful science. Absolutely. Um, and Meg said she loves homeopathy. It's effective. It helps people be happy and move toward health. It's interesting, and you want to be a healer, and homeopathy works. Sue is asking me, do I still feel it's the deepest healing after all these years? What a great question, Sue. I do. I have, when it comes to sort of natural health modalities, um, my my purview has expanded. It's true, which is simply due to time and experience. I didn't know things that now that I knew. I didn't know then what I know now, but at the same time, um, it's one of the most beautiful, subtle, gentle, but thorough, comprehensive healing modalities. Homeopathy is so. Um, I'm very pleased to say I still feel that way. Thank you again for sharing, everybody. And as far as the next slide here, what is your what? Now, what in the world do I mean by this? So, now that you have a sense of what might be your why, one of the next steps would be what do you actually want to do in practice? And this is such a huge question. There's just simply not enough time to cover this in our limited time here today in this coffee chat. But um, what do you want to do in your practice? Everyone's going to have a different answer to this. Do you want to treat humans or animals? Do you want to treat both, for example? And if it's humans um, or animals, it doesn't really matter. How much do you want to practice? What's reasonable for you in your life? Not everybody's going to be able to do it this at the same level. When I was in school, I did a little work study with my mentors slash teachers, and I was trying to work my way through school. I was just shoestringing it, and they let me help them out at their clinic to work off some of the tuition. And I got to see how incredibly busy they were. Um, my mentors were seeing, and this might seem small to some of you out there, but they were seeing 13 to 14 follow-ups a day, each follow-up about 30 minutes. And they were doing acute care calls in between at certain intervals. It basically amounted to about 60 appointments a week. Um, I I'm not practicing at that level, but for the way that they were practicing what they were doing, that was an enormous number for me. And when I have gotten busier in my own practice, I have a sort of breaking point myself where it's like, I cannot do any more than this. So we all have to find what is that number. And for me right now in my own practice, I see about 20 clients a week. It's a combination of follow-ups and initial consultations. That doesn't include any acute care visits that I have because that can vary so widely. but about 20, which means some weeks I'm seeing 30, some weeks I'm seeing 12. It's sort of all over the place. And it depends a lot on my schedule. As Olivia mentioned, I have children, I have a family, I've got um, busy home life, and I have to balance that with my interests and obligations too, with my family. So um, that is important. It's just an important question to ask yourself. What is the kind of practice that you want to have? And again, this can be the number of clients, it can be who you're treating, it can be um, things like that. But for our purposes today, in terms of having a thriving practice, I would encourage you to think about in terms of number of clients. Um, what is going to be that right number for you? And maybe you don't know yet. Maybe, and that's still yet to be determined. And so you don't have to quite know that at this point. Um, and let's see, let's actually move to the next slide, Olivia. And then here, I'm just simply asking you, what is your how? So let's let's talk about when I was first in starting a practice. I had a magic number of seeing 20 to 25 people a week. It was just a number that I felt like would be reasonable for me. I did at that time didn't have a family, but it's just what I felt like that's the kind of level of a practitioner I want to be. I want to make a difference in my community, and I just have to. But how am I going to do it? And that's a lot of what we're talking about today. And there isn't one specific answer for this, but what I'm encouraging you here to do is just simply use goal setting and um, anything that you go out and determine yourself that you want to do and accomplish in homeopathy, make it a goal. Um, Determine what specific goal it is to accomplish. For example, um, a specific goal of, you know, um, in terms of building your practice, you could say, I want to have one new client this month. I want to have one new initial consultation this month. Okay, that's a specific goal. It's measurable in the sense that it entails one new initial visit. Is it achievable? That would be for you to determine if it is or isn't, but um, I say go for it. Results oriented, meaning it can't be necessarily outcome based. When what I'm referring to with that is just if you're looking at a specific goal of, well, I want to have 20 client hours or 20 client visits per week. Um, well, to a degree, that's result, but you know, at the same time, what am I going to have to do to get there? Now, we can all say we want to be millionaires, but we got to figure out how we're going to become millionaires, right? And so that's how we're getting it to be more results oriented and not necessarily outcome based in that sense. And the final is T for trackable. I also think the T can stand for time oriented. You want to get this accomplished by when? So if you want to have one new initial consultation visit this month, then that's your trackable goal. It's by month's end. So and this is just a very simple model. It's used in any kind of coaching field. And if you hadn't seen it before, I just thought it'd be worth knowing that you can apply this to anything that you do. Um, and setting SMART goals, for example. And um, what one thing that I want to also point in, it's related to this, and this is also just an aspect of other slides here too, but just I'll highlight it here that um, when you're talking about going out and having one new initial client visit, we have to also break that down into its own component steps. Like, how are we going to do that exactly? Because, um, and this is again going to highlight what I'm talking about in other slides. So you have to get out there and make yourself known. In fact, I'm sorry, Olivia, let's go to the next slide. I think this will make more sense if I do that here. I was getting ahead of myself. Sorry about that. But let's actually go into some of those best practices. And this is I've kind of determined, and again, this isn't the full enchilada here, but business best practices and personal best practices. And the personal ones I'll take up on the next slide. Um, this is what I have found to be really critical when I was first starting off in practice. Simply, I wrote a business plan. And the whole saying a failure to plan is a plan to fail was pretty, I think, pretty poignant. So if you haven't done that, there's all kinds of business plan templates out there that you can just simply download. Um, when I was first starting, I went to the Small Business Association or Small Business Administration in the town of Austin, Texas. I was a brand new person to Austin. I didn't know anybody here, and I was just, I'm going to do it. I'm going to build a practice here. So I went to that Small Business Administration building. I downloaded templates. I wrote things out, and business plans make you really think through kind of critically how you're actually going to build a practice that can actually thrive. So if you haven't done so already, or if you already have, it's not a bad plan to even revisit it. How did things work out? You know, what's the next level that you want to get to if you do, and write a plan for that. Um, I'm a big fan of incorporation, meaning here in the US to actually establish a corporation, whether that's, I don't want to get too into the weeds here, but that could be LLC, it could be an S corporation, but having an entity that is actually business oriented, that's separate from you, that you are you and your business is your business because you are now a business person. And I think kind of having that mentality that you are now in business is important because we as homeopaths are doing this because we know it's beautiful, we know it's an elegant thing, we love it, and we want the world to be happy and well. But we also have to really kind of anchor ourselves into establishing business principles here. So I'm a fan of incorporating. Your situation could be different, but that was an important step that I personally took. And that also involved establishing separate business accounts, like bank accounts, for example. Um, I had something for my personal life and something for the business life, and I didn't mix the two. Like this had to be a business entity. And there's also other protections for doing that. There's also protections from liability and risks by doing that. Again, I'm not a tax attorney here. I'm not an accountant, but I would also encourage you to meet with them in terms of setting this up too. Um, and after you do all that, you write your business plan, you incorporate, you set up your business accounts. Um, if you don't have a website or some kind of online presence, I highly encourage that you do. People have to be able to find you. They have to be able to locate you. I know lots of people here in the Austin, Texas area that are practicing homeopathy. I don't know at what level, but they don't have a way for people to reach them. They don't have. I can hardly even find email addresses. So, and perhaps that's what they want. They want to be anonymous, and that's fine. But for me, I wanted to really build a thriving practice. So be findable. Get on directories, the CHC directory. If you're a member of other organizations, get on their directories. If you can do it, take out ads on those directories or other ad space, for example, on Google. Or personally, I actually did Yelp ads. So I established a Yelp page, and so where people could review my practice, and that really helped with kind of the search engine optimization of my website so that because it was through Yelp, which is such a grandiose website, people were able to find me a whole lot easier. So I made the investment, paid for ads to be found on Yelp. I found that to actually be very helpful. I'm not getting any kickbacks from Yelp or anything like this. I just know that was one way that was very good. And I included scheduling software, and what I mean by that is when I first started, everything was handwritten. All my appointments were in my little notebook and I wrote things down, and that's fine. That's actually how I learned to do it from my mentors. They wrote everything down by hand. But we're in a different age. And I personally use Square now. Now, there's many, many different options, and I encourage you to research those and use whatever's best for you. Um, but in that way, people schedule appointments, they can change or cancel or reschedule or establish, appointments that way. It's kind of taking all the HR work away from me. And it's just simply easy and convenient. People have enjoyed being able just to simply schedule from my website using that software. And then the last point that I was trying to hit on earlier was forge ahead as a community expert. And what this means is write articles for local publications in your area. That was one of the referral sources I highlighted earlier. But you're basically branding yourself as a community expert in all things homeopathy. Sometimes people adjust the verbiage maybe to be all things natural. It's fine. Do that as well if that feels a little bit better for you. But the point is, you're trying to brand yourself as somebody who is an expert in their field by writing articles, blog posts from your website, um, just really kind of getting your name out there in that sense. Um, I also did a lot of free talks when I was first starting. Um, Free talks at local health food stores. Um, just getting the word out so people know, oh, there's a homeopath here. I didn't know that, and you can help them see perhaps some of the homeopathic remedies that might be on the shelves in their store and teach them a little bit about it. Um, and I also did a lot of business networking. So being in Austin, I was kind of new. I didn't really know anybody. So even if it wasn't homeopathy related, I was just simply going to business networking meetings to meet people so that they knew, oh, there's a homeopath here. And what is that? And you get to get a chance to practice your elevator speech as well, which is the 30-second version of what you do and what homeopathy is. Um, so those were helpful things that I did. Those are my best practices. You all might have your own best practices as well that I simply could learn from you too. But highlighting that last point, just establishing yourself as a community expert. So going back to a previous slide when I was saying, if your goal is to have one new client this month, it's the how to go about doing that. And what I mean by that is simply Um, getting there means writing 3 blog articles a week, writing a publication in the local newspaper, the weekly newspaper. Try to do that at least once this month, or going to um, one business networking meeting a week for 4 weeks. So those then become your kind of SMART goals. And I was trying to highlight that earlier. Sorry, that was a little clumsy, but that's actually how you kind of break that down and go forward. Um, all right, yeah, Olivia, next slide, please. And um, again, this is not comprehensive. This is a condensed version of some of the things I've learned. But as far as business practices on a personal level, act as if. And what I mean by that, and why I included that, is if you are just establishing a practice, or maybe you've been at it for a couple years, um, have a distinct workday. In as much as you would go, let's say, to a 9 to 5 job as an employee somewhere, even if you have nobody on the calendar that day, act as if you are there. This is my business workday. If I don't have any clients, well, this gives me time to do those blogs. This gives me time to go to those networking meetings. This gives me time to interact with, if you have an office suite, for example, go knocking door to door, like introduce yourself, make your business cards, write your business plan, but act as if you have a full-time job, or depending on your uh, flexibility and what you need, maybe it's a part-time thing, but whatever you determine you have to try to build a practice each day, that's your designated time. That's not time to run errands. That's not time to do other things. That's homeopathy business building time. And just and commit to that, and just stay true to that. And with anything, there's always ups and downs. I've been through many, many, many ups and downs with building a practice, but stay focused. Remember your why. Why are you doing this? What is this about in your life? What is the experience you want to have that you're going for? And just try to stay focused. It's easy to feel kind of beaten down. Not only is it hard to do something on your own as a solopreneur in homeopathy, but we've got sort of cultural things that are kind of working against us too. That there's smear campaigns against homeopathy, and what I find is just tune all that out. Just turn the page, tune it out, stay focused on what you can control, what's important for you, what you can do in your day-to-day life to meet the homeopathic needs of your community. And this is just a simple encouragement. If you don't succeed, just try again. If some things didn't work out, turn the page, try again. This is it does take time, and there's probably so much more I could even say about all that. But a homeopathic practice does not get built overnight. I was fresh out of school. I moved to Austin, Texas. I was like, all right, I'm starting a practice. And well, it took me, I was pretty good on that for about 2 months, and then ran out of money and had to get a job. So that's what I did is I worked part-time and had my designated time for homeopathy, and then my part-time work was established doing something else, and and I did that for many years until I was able to hit a critical mass where I could kind of let the other job go and just leap into full-time practice. Other practitioners that I know of did it a lot faster than me, and but it took me about 8 years before I was able to kind of hit that critical mass and reach the level of practice that I wanted. And again, I'm about 20 client interactions, 20 appointments a week. That might be what you want to do, or maybe you want to do more. So your timeline could be different than mine. But again, uh, it's just worth saying it doesn't happen overnight. I don't know of anybody who it does happen overnight for. So just be encouraged and keep at it. The next line there, draw from sources of inspiration. Now, this could mean so many different things. But what I mean is we have to be active about keeping inspired and encouraged. Um, that could mean really delving into homeopathic material that you love. Maybe there's a practitioner who's written books or has a certain style that you really are in love with. Well, dive in, learn everything you can if that inspires you. But when I first included that, I was kind of, in a sense, meaning on a deeper level. Like, what gives you hope? Where do you draw your motivation to keep going? Um, Now, I'm Christian, and where my inspiration for hope comes from my relationship with Jesus. Now, obviously, that might not be for you, and it is for me. And so I just draw hope from Him, and I know that I can do all things. And so I just encourage you to find that for yourself and, you know, keep that in mind as well. Also, surround yourself with others who challenge you and who can support you. And what I mean by this is um, they don't even have to be homeopaths. They can be other business owners, they can be other friends, people that are encouraging and supportive where they want you to rise to the next levels. So in this in a homeopathic setting, this could come from mentorship. This could come from being a part of a study group. Other people are always going to know things that you can learn from. So keep surrounding yourself with people who will take you to the next level and challenge you. And it doesn't have to be the same people, but who can support you. I've kind of highlighted this already, but it's kind of hard to do this on your own. When I was practicing and first starting it, I kind of felt like a silo into myself for many years, and it's a pretty lonely place. So if you have connections with folks you went to school with, keep nurturing those connections. If you have a study group that you interact with online, keep nurturing those connections. Um, and just stay active with that because it's just really difficult to do this on your own. The day-to-day work of a homeopath is very demanding. All of us are focused on doing a good job for our clients that we work with, making a difference. Again, whatever your why is, but it's plain and simple. This isn't the easiest thing in the world to do. So just know that you're not alone, and stay active in getting that support. The next line, I just give yourself grace. Again, just be gentle and kind to yourself. Know that this takes time. And I heard it said once, when we give a homeopathic remedy, sometimes the best remedy is simply the tincture of time. That there isn't a medicine we need to give; it just needs to take time. And I think that's the same with us here in homeopathy or establishing a practice. Know that it can take time, and there's no rush. Your timeline is your timeline. Your timeline isn't my timeline. Everybody's individualized, just like it is in homeopathy. So allow yourself the grace to know that it does take time. And then finally, be encouraged that you're needed and wanted. It can feel really easy to think that, man, I didn't give the person the right remedy, and oh, they canceled, or um, ah, you know, this and this happened, and they're in crisis, and I don't know what to do. Or I think it's in those individual circumstances, but I think in a sort of more cosmic level, what we're doing is so vital. I feel like I'm probably preaching to the choir when I say that. Otherwise, we don't get into homeopathy if we don't really believe that. Um, but just stay encouraged that the work you're doing is critical. It's really important for that family member or that person or that uh, family you're working with. They really do need you, even if it seems really hard, even if they're discouraged with treatment, even if they're not getting the results they want. You're still needed and wanted. And even if a client cancels on you, even if somebody walks away, uh, um, there's other people that really need and want this. And I personally have found that um, there's sort of a rhythm to this. Uh, you know, Everyone's different. Everyone has a different type of practice. But in my practice, I tend to see folks to a degree, and then they simply kind of get to the point where they're good. And then, the relationship can naturally just dissolve. But more often than not, they kind of come back for other things. So just stay encouraged, and keep your head up. And again, there's way too much for me to cover here in an hour on sort of step-by-step critical components, but I just wanted to highlight some of those best practices on a personal level as well as business level. And then Olivia, if you could switch to the next slide. And that was about 50 minutes. So I'm just at this point going to say thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to meet with you all today. I again have a special love and appreciation for the CHC, spending a lot of time, and I do believe that the work it's doing is so critical. So thanks for the opportunity for allowing me to get in front of your screen and do some things here for you all today. And I've listed my email and website. So if you can email me if you have specific questions too after today. I also have that website. I think Olivia already mentioned that, but you can take a look and see what I've done on my website, just to kind of get ideas about what should a website even look like. And I'll frankly admit I need to update my website, but um, you can take a look there. Anyhow, thanks, Olivia.
Thank you so much, Noel. Just want to open up the floor to questions, and then we can wrap up. But that was fantastic. I'm not even a CCH, and I want to start a practice now.
Okay. We could use you. Go for it.
Yeah, questions?
This is Meredith. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, good. As you know, Noel, kids. I'm driving kids to activities, and I'm on Bluetooth headphones right now in the
I
car.
get you.
Okay. So obviously, I always appreciate your wisdom. And I have two questions for you that came up during this presentation. So the first is the data you threw up around kind of marketing or where referrals come from. I'm curious if you tracked that in your own practice over time and kind of use that then, especially the years you were working another job, to kind of decide where to put your marketing efforts. And then my second question for you, that just kind of came up at the end, those kind of emergencies with clients, or when clients are kind of panicked, what do you do to kind of recenter yourself in that moment, return to your why, not get kind of wrapped up into their panic or like immediacy and things like that?
Yeah. Great. Nice to hear from you, Meredith. Um, well, I haven't done a hard audit on my own practice, but just at, I bet you that reflects pretty close to what I've experienced, where most folks who come to me are through people I've already worked with or helped. Um, in the Austin, Texas area, I stayed very focused on trying to optimize my website. And so I think people can find, if you search homeopathy in Austin, my website comes up. Um, and then I think the Yelp website's pretty high up there too. Yelp, highlighting my practice. So um, I think that was probably pretty significant too. But primarily referrals from other folks who I've already worked with, and then I would say online presence would be up there somewhere, um, that kind of thing. Um, and then I think too, just every practitioner, those online here would probably have their own unique ways of working with folks, but you know, in it, I think if I can answer this right, is just stay focused on what you can do. We can't fix people's problems. We can't, we're trying to help them find a good homeopathic remedy, of course, but your role right there is just listen, observe, um, take the case. You're hearing the anxiety, and that's just information for you. Um, but stay focused on the principles of homeopathy and what you know, and just do your best. I think probably the wisest advice I ever got in school when I was in school, and it's so simple, but just do your best. That's all you can ever ask. And you're over time going to get better. You're over time going to learn how to do this more effectively. And there's no other way to do it except experience and time. Um, but just stay true to your principles and take some deep breaths too, perhaps. I hope that helps, Meredith.
Thank you, Noel.
So Kathleen asked in the chat, has your goal of 25 client appointments per week changed since your pre-family practice?
Yeah, it has. I think I'm probably about where I want to be. Um, I think if I were to take like I was saying, some weeks I do have 25 or more folks. Those are very, very busy weeks. Sometimes I have less, but it usually hovers around 20. And I think I'm about where I want to be as an individual practitioner, doing this on my own.
And then Sue asked, did you ever do a once a month class for newcomers? Was it successful? And what did you talk about?
That's a great idea, Sue. I didn't adhere to that specifically, but I know what you're talking about, where I think it's really a really uh, effective thing to do is just to simply just to use the model you just said on a monthly basis, just invite anyone that's new, just to simply a Q&A, very informal. I think nowadays everyone's used to using Zoom, so you can even do that online. But when I was first practicing, um, it was just different. This was, late 2000s, 2010 when I really hit the ground running, and Zoom wasn't invented. And so anyway, I think it's a lot easier to do those kinds of things now. I would highly encourage doing it. But what I did do is probably more quarterly, just to kind of, answer that a little bit better. And I think it was good. And even if you don't get anybody who sort of signs up with you, you're still planting seeds. You're planting seeds that people are gonna sprout in some way or another, or maybe it pollinates in a different part of the community from somebody you've never heard from. But everything you do is about planting seeds. So I would highly encourage that, Sue. I don't know. Perhaps you've done it yourself and can share how that went.
All right. It looks like we have a question from Christina. She said, do you use social media at all for obtaining new clients?
Yeah, so I do have like a Facebook page. I was getting into that for a while. I know there's other better things than that. Instagram, X, or Twitter, other things, TikTok, maybe. I don't know. I used to be pretty heavily involved into that when I was first building a practice, so I would say yes to that. And again, I don't know if it necessarily translated into, folks working with me a lot. Sometimes it did, but I think it was just getting the word out. You're marketing yourself as an expert in homeopathy, and I think establishing that kind of a community, marketing yourself and branding yourself in that way, will prove to be fruitful, probably in ways that you don't expect. So I would encourage you to do it.
Juanita has two questions. One, do folks reach out just for remedies and not for consultation? If yes, how do you go about handling that? And then her second question is, insurance doesn't cover the charges. Any advice there?
Yeah. So I'm not a retail store. I don't sell homeopathic remedies to people I don't know, and um, there's probably different reasons for that, but probably the big one is, um, in the United States, the laws are a little funny when it comes to, practicing medicine without a license. So if you're selling things and you don't have a license to sell things in that sense, I think it gets a little dodgy. So if like somebody brand new or somebody I don't know gives me a call and maybe it's very sincere, but they're working with somebody else and they just need a remedy, I just I don't respond to those. I don't want to get into it, basically. And then as far as insurance, sometimes people do have like flexible spending accounts or health savings accounts through their employers or through their employer insurance plan. So I have had lots of folks use those to pay for homeopathic services. Um, but beyond that, yes, it's cash based. And frankly, at least in the Austin area, there are a lot of medical doctors, chiropractors, other natural health providers, even. But again, specifically medical doctors who are not getting involved in the third party payer system, and they're moving towards cash based. So um, it's happening out there in more ways than one.
Any other questions for Noel?
Meg, when do you have people pay?
Yeah. Hey, Meg, great question. I try to do everything day of service, so if I'm seeing somebody right then and there, I do a lot of in-person visits as well, but even if it's online, again, I use Square and people can add their like payment details through Square. So even if we have like an online or remote appointment, billing can still happen immediately. And I try to settle that there. Like I know it's not always so possible, but otherwise I'm just running around chasing things, and I don't have time for that. So I ask people straight out, like, are we okay if we use, the card you have on file to bill for today? And 100% of the time or 95% of the time it's fine. And um, I don't have any problems with that.
Any other questions?
Hello,
Hello.
hello,
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
hello. How,
Go ahead.
hello. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
How anemia can be treated? In cases where your RBC cell size has increased and
Okay.
shape has changed.
Okay. So for clinical questions, you'd have to really, make sure to, this is all individualized, as we know in homeopathy. There isn't one remedy for anemia, for example. So I wouldn't be able to answer that here for our purposes today. Sorry, Sarvjit.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other questions?
Hello, hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, hi. I am first of all, good evening to you guys, you and Neil, and I'm representing from India. So I have a question that over here, clients are still getting to know regarding homeopathy and all that. So we are still developing our practice, and we are making them aware of the practice of homeopathy. So how is it in USA? Like, do clients come together to practice the homeopathy or something like that? Or is allopathy overtaking the homeopathy again, the same norms?
I'm not sure if I have enough information to kind of speak generally, about the status of that. I just, at least in my community of Austin, Texas, there's more and more openness to alternative therapies. I think, you know, but we're always sort of smaller. We're very, very much a smaller industry than the
Okay.
allopathic kind of medical system. We're minutely, in comparison. So, but I don't have any active, like, we're trying to suppress my practice is called the Austin Clinic of Homeopathy. I don't have anybody actively individually doing that. So I don't know how that looks though in a general way.
Okay, and regarding the dispensing of medicines, do you dispense medicines by your own, or any other homeopathic pharmacies are available in your particular area or something? How is it?
Right. Yeah. So I have my own pharmacy, and I do
Okay,
offer remedies for people. I also work with other pharmacies, you know,
all right.
bigger, widely known ones, or smaller businesses that I know personally. So I do both.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Neil. Thank you.
Cool.
Interesting session. Thank you.
Peshri asked if there are any legal things that we have to take care of while practicing.
In are the I'm not sure who the name again, but was that in the U.S. or other countries?
I believe the US.
U.S. Yeah. I think there's probably each state is different. Each state has their own particular laws about doing homeopathy or being an unlicensed practitioner of any kind. So that's it's sort of a tougher question to answer right here. But I think you would need to definitely ask. I don't know if the CHC has specific information on that. I know the North American Society of Homeopathy has more information about practicing in individual states. So I would try to consult with them.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello. I'm having a last question. Sorry for that. I heard some states have banned the homeopathy practice. Is that true?
States have banned it.
Yeah.
I don't know if any state, I can't say outright of anyone that I know of that's banned it out,
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
So generally, it's been practiced all over the states.
I think so. Probably, again, the CHC has a directory, and I think you can search by
Mhm.
state, so you can check there.
All right. All right.
Um,
Thank you. Okay.
yeah.
I think we got a question from Mariana that is approximately what percentage of your clients would be women, men, children? What's kind of the demographic breakdown, I
Yeah.
guess?
well, it's been a long time since I've kind of looked at the demographics there, to be honest with you, but I think it still remains that most often than not, it's moms seeking help for their kids or for themselves or women in general. I think the largest demographic of homeopathic consumers is middle-aged women, mostly between the ages of 30 and 39, I think is what I read once. Um, so I think that still bears out to be true. Um, as a male, I think I do, people find comfort if you are a male in seeing another male. So I do have a lot of men clients as well. I was surprised to find one day recently, I was surprised. I was like, wow, I had a full day in my practice of all men. And I was very surprised to see that. It doesn't happen all the time, but so I would say it's mostly women and children, and then I think men in terms of clientele are rising.
All right. Well, I think that's about all the time we have for
Okay.
tonight. I just want to thank you again so much, Noel, for all of your wonderful insight. That I'm sure has just been such a spark for so many people here tonight to just get a fire under them to keep going and to persevere too. So thank you so much. This has been such a huge help in advancing the homeopathic profession. Thank you. And thank you to everyone who's attended. Hopefully we'll see you all again for future coffee chats and happy hours. And don't forget, in the meantime, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And you can also sign up for our monthly communique newsletter. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Have a good rest of your evening.